Now, we are going to be discussing about functions and modular programming in Python in this class. Okay, so I have launched my Anaconda Navigator, so I can just go ahead to Spider, launch Spider. All right, so in Python programming, functions are blocks of reusable codes. We have to remember that functions are blocks of reusable code that perform specific functions. Okay, so function helps in breaking down complex problems that promote code reuse and improve maintainability. Modular programming, on the other hand, refers to dividing a program into separate modules or components where each part is responsible for a specific aspect of the program. So like we said a function is a block of reusable code, right? So to define a function in Python, let's write a comment and say we use as, let's say, defining function. So to define a function in Python, we use the def keyword. So basically, the def, okay, that is the def keyword, right? Followed by the function name and parentheses. So we want to define a function, greet, right? So this is the function name and this is the parentheses. To define a function, greet, and then followed by a parenthesis. So if we go ahead now and say we want to print hello world, say, or we'll say print hello, Mr. Adeyemi, to call up this function, which is the greet function. So if we were to call up this function, we will say, let's say, calling up this function. To call the function, we can just say greet and open parentheses. So if we want to refer to that function, but however, we have said that if we run this code, we have basically an empty what? So we have an empty function here, all right? So what if we wanted to declare a function with a parameter? Say you can pass data to a function by defining parameters within the function. So let us basically look at it this way. So we basically have seen a simple way of defining a function. So if we were to define a function with a parameter within it, so let's continue with the function greet, right? So in this parenthesis now, we want to say greet a name, right? We want to say the function should not be an empty function, but a name. Let's have a name within the parentheses, okay? So we go ahead now and say print, and we are going to be using the S string here. And say, so we'll say print the S string, then we have, let's say hello, okay? Then we'll say, we'll say comma, say for the impute the function we in defining greet, we called on name, right? We use name as the in this way. Let me just call it variable so that you get to understand what I mean. So we say we use the exclamation mark within. Okay. So now, since we have successfully done this now, if we were to say greet Alice, so we will now say greet, and in the place of name now, we are going to use Alice. We are going to use Alice. So now this is us calling that function, okay? If we run this now, you are going to see that we have hello Alice because we have defined the function, say name. So anytime we call the function greet and we say this name is as Alice, so we say the name is Alice, right? And already we say print the S string of hello name. So anywhere we make mention of this name, it understands that we are talking about Alice. So let's basically define a function with a return value. Let's say let's define a function with return value. Now, what we mean here is that if we define, say we want to define this function and call the function, say A, and say we are referring to, sorry, we want to define, say, this is how you can easily create. I think we have a project like that to create like a calculator app. So we want to add what? We want to add A and B. So that's what we want to do. So we are defining a function add, of which we are declaring A and B. Okay. So if we say return, we want to return A plus B. What it means is that definitely, since we said we have defined a function add, and we say, but in return, the return actually states what will happen with the, basically, let me call it the variables we declared within the function add. So now we go on and say results. So the result now will be, this is like a variable we are declaring now. The result will be equal. So result now is a variable. Okay, now this add now, you see that here is referring to the function we defined, right? Are you seeing it here? So if we add, we said A and B, right? If we add, say, if we say 5 here, right, comma 10. What this understands is that, are you seeing what is pointing to you? It understands that the first value here will be A, the second, the following will be B. And since we already said it should return an addition of A and B, when we put it this way, it definitely will do that for us. So all we need to do basically is now to say it should go ahead and print what? Print results, to print that variable. So to print this variable, it's going to print the result of this. But the result of this is directed by the function that we have defined, as well as the return value of this function. Okay. So if we go ahead now and run this, okay, if we go ahead and run this, you will see that our answer here will be 15, where it is highlighted here. It will be 15 because 5 plus 10 is what? Is 15. So what if we had defined this and so we want a return of, say, a subtraction, A minus B. So we're definitely going to have a different result, right? You see, minus 5. That is to tell you that the return here we have has an extremely important role to play, because it's actually, let me put it this way, that it actually determines the calculation to be done. So if we change this to multiplication, you see that, sorry, if we change this to multiplication, it multiplies 5 by 10. Although, while defining the function, always remember that if your goal is multiplication, you can say multiply, so that you remember that you basically are multiplying. So if that is your goal, you can basically do that. So I just wanted to point out that it doesn't matter the term, the words you use here. It doesn't matter. What matters is the return value you have here and the arithmetic that you want to determine here. So, but you use multiply so that you be clear, right? That is multiplication you want. And if we go ahead and run this, you're going to see that it's going to multiply 5 by 10, which gives us what? 50. That is what defining a function with return value. So let's look at the different types of function. So the first one, we have the default parameters. Let me say number 1 here, we are looking at, say, default parameters, right? As the first type of function. And how can we do that? To do that, we can assign default values to parameters. Say if the user does not provide an argument, the default value will be used. If the user does not provide an argument, the default value will be used. So let's define this function and say define a greet function, all right? And we say the name here will be equals to guest, right? Will be equals to guest. Okay, so let us now say print, use the F string, okay? And we'll say hello, as we did earlier, say hello, curly braces, hello name, yeah, hello name, close curly braces, and let's use exclamation mark, hello name. So if we determine and say, if we say greet here will be what? We'll be using what? Using the default value, which is guest. However, this greet, if we say greet now, and we provide these and say Adeyemi now, so this other greet now will be providing Adeyemi because Adeyemi provided an argument. So basically, something like that. That is what it means. Are you seeing our output? We have hello guests, hello Adeyemi, because we just say print hello name, right? So in this situation now, if the guest doesn't provide an argument, say doesn't provide, if we don't provide a name, it prints the default, right? But if we do, it prints the name that has been entered. Like for instance, in this case, Adeyemi. And again, this exclamation mark here have nothing like a significant importance there. It's just about like a greeting. If we run this code, you see that we still have it correctly. So I just wanted to point that out. So now the second one is the keyword argument. Is the word keyword argument. So let's use say number 2, keyword argument. Okay, that is the second type of function that we have. So if we define a function now in this keyword argument, the keyword argument functions can also be called using keyword arguments, where the argument's name is explicitly mentioned. We have done that. We have done something like that initially. So, but you might not have noticed. So let's define a function and call the function, say we want it to multiply, right? And we want to determine to say, okay, within this function, we have A and B. You can use anything. You can use Y, Z, okay, Y and Z, basically. Anything you want to use. So if we go and say, okay, let it return, say Y, since it's multiplication multiplied by Z, right? And then we say the result here, remember, you can use anything, but we use result basically to show that, okay, we are multiplying something and we should have a variable called result. You can use anything that is dear to your memory or your heart. So we say result equals to, and now we are calling multiply because we had declared, you see now when we say multiply, you see the F before. So the F before shows as a function, and you can see it here, a function we had declared, right? This function we have created before. So we have multiply now. So if we multiply and now say, we just say B explicitly, say B equals to, say 5, right? And I said B, right? Sorry, I changed B. We say Y, we didn't use B anymore. We say Y equals, say 5. Then we said Z is equal 29, for instance. If we do that, and now we say print, the print result now, remember, you see what we do. Result now here is like a variable. We want to print the result of this variable. So like I said, we could use anything here as a variable. We can decide to say we want A, right? Or B, whatever. But we use result so that our codes will be clear enough. So what is happening here is that, remember, we have provided and saying Y equals to, this is keywords argument, right? The Y is a keyword for what? For 5. YZ is a keyword for 29. Remember when we did earlier, we didn't have to put the 5, right? We didn't have to put the Y or the Z. We just follow through with the order and say, if the value is here, we know that it's Y. After the comma, we know that it's a Z, okay? So if we print this now, you are going to see that we have an answer of 145. So a multiplication of 5 by 29. So 5 times 29 will give us that. So the third type of function, we have the arbitrary argument or the args as you see it in Python. So number 3, we have arbitrary arguments. Okay, so the arbitrary arguments can be seen to be written as you see it in most places as args. Okay, sorry, args, yes. So now let's define a function with that. So the arbitrary argument is used if you don't know how many arguments will be passed. So if you don't know how many arguments will be passed, you use the arbitrary argument, right? If you don't know the number of arguments that will be passed in a function, you can use the args to allow any number of arguments. Let's define a function called sum. Okay. So we want to sum, in this case, say sum numbers. So we want to sum numbers. And because we do not know the number of arguments to be passed, right? In this case, we know that we just have 2. We are sure setting. But if we are not setting about the number of arguments that will be passed, we can just use the arbitrary argument, the args, the args, right? So here we now say total, declare total and say total is equals to 0. We'll say for number in arg, for the number, basically the 4, we are using the this is like a loop now, but you get clearer when we begin to talk about for and while loop. But we'll say for number in args, okay, for number in args, then we say total plus equals number, right? Okay. Then we want to return total. So if we want to return total now, we'll just say let's print, say we want to print some numbers, that is the function we declared, some numbers. So now we have, say, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So, but I think on line 20 here, we are having an error. Let's see, I think we are going to have an error if we run this now, because syntax error, invalid syntax for num in args. Okay, telling us that we have a syntax error there. Okay, so you basically can usually will have such syntax error, and oh, I didn't put the word in. I was saying it, but I didn't put it. So print some, okay, this print again. So be very careful of how you write your code. You can have errors. So now we are free to go. So we have declared this. We've defined a function called sum numbers. We want the function to sum numbers, and we don't know the number of arguments. We aren't sure about the number of arguments. So we say total equals 0. So for a num, we declare num in argument. So total plus or equals to num. So return total, okay? So if we print this now, we are going to get a value of 10. Okay, you can see what I'm highlighting. We have a value of 10. So we have another type of function called the arbitrary keyword argument. And that will be the last type of function we'll be looking at, the arbitrary keyword argument. And so that is number 4, the arbitrary keyword arguments. So basically, you can see it in documents as quarks. Okay, basically adding KW to args. Okay, as what? So let's define a function that uses quarks. But before then, if we use quark, you want to accept a variable number of keywords arguments. That's the reason why we use the arbitrary keyword argument. We want to accept a variable number of keywords arguments. So let's define that. We want to define a function that prints info, okay? And we want to declare, use the tags. So we say for key value in tags item in quark.item. Don't worry, we'll use this in developing applications and they'll become clearer. So let us print an F string of key. So when we want to make reference to, yes, key, we want to make reference or to key and value, what we declared, say a function you declared, we want to print that function out. So that is what you use, put them inside curly braces. So now let's go and say we want to now print info. Okay, we want to print info. That is, we're talking about the print info variable we rather the print info function we declared earlier. So we'll say name, right? Equals. So we've been using Alice. So name equal Alice, or we can use a DME equal DME, right? And we'll say age. So let's say age now equals 30, right? Then we want to say Adeyemi lives in, so city is equals, say Lagos, okay? So if sorry, Lagos is a string, so we definitely have to make Lagos a string. So what happens here is that we have basically looked at the key and values. If we print this now, we have an attribute error here. It's not item, it's items. So yeah, I think there is items, okay? So that's why we had this attribute error. So let's rerun and we are going to see. So we have name is a DME, his age is 30, his city is Lagos. So we can basically, those are the four functions, right? They are the four types of functions basically that can be used in your development endeavors.